At Sturgis, our tradition, we have quite a lot of traditions, but one of them is that we don't rank our students. So we don't actually have a valedictorian and a salutatorian and then they give speeches at graduation. That's not part of our tradition. What we do, as you already know, we ask the students, the seniors, to write a 5 to 7 minute speech. And there's a committee that chooses the ones that they feel are most representative of the class. So our first student speaker is Silva.
Can everyone hear me? Maybe? All right. Graduation is a really overwhelming time in the graduate's life. You have all of these family members and family friends coming up to you, offering advice about life, asking about your future, asking if you're excited for college. And amidst all of this, you're just standing there and you're thinking, I'm in a robe. Usually this means that I've resigned myself to a day full of Netflix, procrastinating, and completely irrelevant but still entertaining YouTube videos. But writing this graduation speech has taught me many things, mostly about the difficulty of writing a graduation speech. There's a lot you have to incorporate. There's humor, inspiration, and advice, neither of which I'm exactly a prime source for, as I'm sure many of my peers can say. But while reviewing other speeches, I turned to our world's greatest figures, namely people such as Winston Churchill and Neil Gaiman, and Oprah did come up. And if there was one thing that I learned, it's that you will fall asleep without humor unless you are either A, one of my parents Facebooking about this, or B, some stranger that showed up with nothing else to do. And by the way, if that stranger is here today, props to you for making it past our airtight security. Just one more thing before I start. Remember, I am about to give you all a speech on one of the most important days in our lives so far in a robe. So if you don't want to take my advice, no worries. It came from an ice cream man in a robe anyway. So fasten your seatbelts because here we go. If someone had told me 3 years ago that I would be giving a speech at my high school graduation, I would have been incredibly doubtful. I would question myself, would I really come to care about this school that much? Did I fail the IB math exam and they're letting me talk anyway? I know I'm not alone when I say that coming into this school was a pretty big leap of faith. After having already spent a year of high school with one group of people, we decided to try something new and head on over to Sturgis. And not just Sturgis, mind you, but a new Sturgis campus in another former furniture store. For those of you here today that did not go through this experience, let me give you a quick recap of the joys of Sturgis West's first year. For one thing, distractions were never a problem. We only had about 4 windows. I remember when I would have classes in my one room with a window and I would treasure whatever natural light was pouring in for once. Lunch was a blessing, walking on Main Street, and you would actually see the coolest people there too. Does anyone remember the man with the parrot on his shoulder? That was pretty cool. And let's not forget the general proximity of everyone to each other. Breathing room was extremely hard to come by. With about 200 kids in that small space, we got very, very close to each other. We came to be a very touchy class of 2014. And I can't help but think it must have come from that minute space. And there was the asbestos thing. But that's another story for another time. The point is that despite Old West's imperfections, we loved it anyway. It was that building that shaped not only our class, but future classes and Sturgis cultures to come. And in all honesty, even though it wasn't the most pleasant experience at the time, I feel a little sad for future classes that can't share the same unifying experience that we did. In fact, a few months ago, I was talking to one of my friends and saying that it would be very cool if the freshmen and sophomores at Sturgis had to spend their first 2 years of high school in that tiny, potentially condemnable building. The bond that was formed between the members of our class as a whole cannot be accurately explained, and a bond of the same caliber would be very hard to find by staying in the palace on West Main by comparison that we have now. Even though we're aching to get away from each other now, we'll hopefully look back and see the truly special bond that was formed between us thanks to that formerly decrepit building. Sturgis as a whole is a really hard thing to define. It's academia, it's motivation, it's really incredibly and mostly uncomfortably weird. There's really no way to define it, and due to this, sadly, we are not in the dictionary, but the closest word to Sturgis is sturdy, defined as strong enough to withstand rough work or treatment. Now, I'm sure a lot of you graduates are already laughing at the irony of this and already pulled out keywords such as withstand or rough work or treatment. But I have no doubt in my mind that this definition speaks to and applies to all of the students in this graduating class. In the past 3 years, I think it's fair to say that we've all had our fair share of breaks stemming from school, whether it be an internal assessment, that damned extended essay, or Weimer sending you back for a pass. There has been a point in all of our Sturgis careers where it seemed like we can't go on, and we want to just abandon the IB and live in the wild, where society and all academia are a long way gone. But this is where the irony comes in. Despite our breaks, despite when things fall apart, we're still able to stand back up and continue riding the IB bull. It's a ride that forces us to endure long and hard, and at times it seems too much for us to handle, but we keep going. We don't stop until the job is done. It was only a few weeks ago that we were staring into the heart of darkness that is the IB. We were face to face with the IB exams, and let me tell those who did not take those exams, it was no doll's house. Those exams were bulls that tried to buck us off with every chance they had. But we survived, and here we are today, united not in our futures, but in our pasts. Some of us are going to college, some of us are taking gap years, and some of us are forging a different path. Though we may differ in that respect, we stand united through shared experiences. Whether it be our very first year here, taping teachers to polls, or our completely just and expected win over all of the underclassmen, specifically the juniors, during this year's Spirit Week. Thanks. We did it together. And to whomever you are or whatever you're doing, I'd like to offer you some advice. There's usually some conventional and out-of-the-box advice that's given around graduation time, and it's time now to offer you all a mix of both. So here we go. Step 1, do not academically kill yourself. Now, I know this may sound a little bizarre for advice one can give to graduating students, but hear me out. There are students around the world who work to the point of exhaustion and severe fatigue. You know who you are. Sure, you need to get that history IA done, you need to get that literary commentary in, but depriving your body of the sleep and general maintenance it needs will help no one, especially yourself. Take care of yourself, pull a few all-nighters, and treat your body like a rental that you have to return the next day. Step 2, as cliched as this has become to us, be open-minded. I know, for example, that I'm planning on studying French and international relations in college, and if I wanted to, I could probably map out the next 5 to 8 years of my life. But I try not to. If you're not open to changes that come your way, you may be content with your life, but you'll never know what could have happened, the unknown amount of happiness you could have experienced. I know you're probably all dead tired of poetry at this point, but I do have one T.S. Eliot quote that I think embodies this. Footfalls echo in the memory down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we never opened. Don't let your regrets rattle around your head. Take risks and go with the flow. And finally, step 3, do more of what makes you happy. Isn't happiness all we're looking for anyway? Take the hour-long bike ride right before the sunrise. Keep writing that book on the side, or spend more time with your loved ones. You only have so much time, and even then it's unpredictable when you may have to get off of this ride. I also think the addition of "in moderation" goes without saying. So take advantage of the time you have here, and within reason, just enjoy life. I'd like to end with a quote by a poet who I personally think the IB should most definitely take more of an interest in. "You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains." Thank you and congratulations to the Sturgis West class of 2014.
Very impressive indeed. Next on the program, we have two young ladies to come up and join us to